Alright, this is Editing George here. I know this is a little strange. We don't even have the music going yet. This is a little weird. I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, yes, this episode was delayed. I did post about it on YouTube. I meant to post about it on Discord, and I didn't. A bunch of things came up. I've been very busy, and I'm sorry about, it being late. That's obviously not ideal. However, this episode did end up being quite a long episode, so I hope it kind of makes up for it. And just one other thing I want to say real quick is that right at the beginning of the show, I talked about how I was going to talk about games I played like I normally do, and I ended up not talking about games I played. First of all, to get this episode out quicker, but also because the episode was long enough as it was, and I figured it would make more sense to just save it for next episode, so it could, next episode could also have a lot of stuff to talk about. Because there was a lot of stuff to talk about news-wise in this episode, mainly stemming from like the Nintendo Direct and Tokyo Game Show. And some of the stuff also that I talked about in the first segment was like super irrelevant by the time by the time this episode came out because new things had happened. So I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get into it. I apologize you had to listen to all this. Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Not Just Nintendo, a video game podcast that is about Nintendo. But it's not just Nintendo here at Not Just Nintendo, as I talk about other video games as well. Welcome back to the show, everybody. And welcome to episode 28 now of the Not Just Nintendo podcast. We're coming up on number 30. Not that there's anything particularly special about number 30, but especially when, episodes are every other week, that those 10 episodes can feel very far apart. And just so you guys know, like I said, I am still kind of planning to, in November, after Marching Band and everything's all done, I'm planning to go back to the weekly schedule, at least try it for a couple of weeks, and then see if it's what we're going to stick with, but we'll see what happens. I've got a lot of videos planned during school. I've been scripting out videos, and so I just need to get around to actually making them. So I'm hoping to pick things up for the end of the year, for October, November, December. That's the plan, but of course, I say this all the time, and then it doesn't end up happening, so maybe I ought not talk too much on it. So in the last 2 weeks, I've been playing a few things. I guess, we'll let the cat out of the bag on this one. I played a little bit more Kirby. I beat Kirby. I did say last time that I was very close to beating Kirby. I beat Kirby in the Forgotten Land, and I worked a little bit more on 100%ing it, but honestly, I didn't get a whole lot farther in it because I went back to Donkey Kong Bonanza. And so, in this episode, we will talk a little bit about Kirby, but we'll also talk a lot about Donkey Kong. And also, just in the last couple of days, I've started playing another game, which we'll touch on in a moment. But I want to, before we get into all of the games I've been playing and stuff, I know usually I open the show with that kind of stuff. I actually want to talk about a few things first. And actually, I think it's probably a good idea if I just completely invert the entire show. So we're going to talk about the Nintendo Direct, right? Because we had the Nintendo Direct on the 12th. So that was like shortly after the last episode. So it's actually been a very long time since this Direct. For you guys, it's been 11 days? So it's been a long time since this Direct happened, so it's not totally fresh on the mind, so I've gone back through, watched it again, and now I've have it pulled up a third time so I can, skip through it to talk about it here with you. Obviously, this Direct was very divisive. I think most people know that, a lot of people did not like the Direct. I think, honestly, I would even go as far to say the majority of people online did not like the Direct. But, obviously it's important to know that, the consensus of people online is not totally representative of the actual fan base's beliefs. Because, there's a lot of people out there who aren't vocal that, do still like a lot of these things that the rest of us crazy people hate. So, I'll talk on that. And there's a couple of things that I don't like that I agree with people on. But generally, I'm actually a little bit more positive on this Direct than most people. So I know you don't come here to hear me being positive. But I'm a little positive today. So we've got the Direct to touch on. By the way, I probably should have mentioned this earlier. I am a little sick, so if my voice still sounds a little weird, I'm not really sure, honestly. I can't tell. So it might sound weird. I don't know. If it sounds weird, my apologies. At the very least, it's not that bad right now, so it's been better. It was more of a week ago issue, right? And it's definitely improved a lot. It's not so bad anymore, and it'll probably be totally gone in a couple of days. But just so you know, that is kind of something I'm sort of dealing with right now. Okay, so direct, and then we'll actually do all the news stuff here at the top of the show as well. And then we'll do the music break, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about stuff I've played, which will mostly be Bonanza. I'll be mostly talking about the post game of Bonanza. I don't think that's really a big spoiler issue, is it? Like, I don't think so. So yeah, I don't think there's any need to worry about any of that stuff. And I will touch on Kirby and the other game I've been playing a little bit then as well. So let's talk about the Nintendo Direct. So for starters, the Nintendo Direct, it was on a Friday. That's kind of weird. Nintendo Directs are not normally on a Friday. I think there might have only been one situation. Correct me if I'm wrong. There might have been one or two, but I can only think of one situation where there was actually any sort of Nintendo presentation. Well, okay, I shouldn't say that, because actually all of the E3 presentations, some of those were on Friday. But still, I can only think of one other situation in, like, the more modern sense, and that was for the Switch 1 presentation. Like when they first, after they had announced the thing, they did like a presentation in January of 2017 that announced a bunch of stuff, talked a lot about Odyssey, that kind of stuff, in Breath of the Wild. I believe that was on a Friday, but other than that, I don't think there's been much on Friday. Friday is kind of a weird day for this, and honestly, I think the only reason they did Friday is because the 3D Mario, or not 3D Mario, just Mario in general. They wanted to do the Mario anniversary celebration. Now, of course, originally, and I even touched on this a little bit a couple episodes ago, originally the rumor was that there was going to be two separate Nintendo Directs, actually three even, some people were saying. There was going to be three Nintendo Directs in September. One was a general Direct, one was a Mario Direct, and then the other was a Metroid Prime 4 focused Direct. And it looks like we're only going to get one. I guess we could maybe still get Metroid Prime, but I'm going to guess Metroid Prime, if there's a Direct for that, it's probably going to be like in October, is my guess. So we'll see. And I think there will be a Direct for that as well, but I think it'll be in October. So we'll figure that out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for now, let's talk about this Nintendo Direct, because another big thing is I believe it's actually the longest traditional Direct. Maybe some of the presentations were longer, but it's the longest actual Direct, like, ever. Like, this is for Nintendo. This is an hour and 6 minutes long. It's quite long of a Direct. And I think it was pretty packed. I think there was a lot of stuff overall, you know. I will say a good thing, and this is a point, I don't remember who I was listening to who was talking about the Direct. This was the good point that they had. That was that if you go through the Direct and you, like, click on a random point, you almost always see something important, right? Or something actually significant. Like, we have Resident Evil. I just clicked on a random spot. Click on another random spot. We've got, what is this? The Pokemon spinoff. All right, another one. We got, Street Fighter, but you know what I'm saying. So, like, most of these things are actually pretty important. There wasn't a ton of fluff, right? There were a couple things, one or two, we'll touch on those, but most of the stuff was actually, like, kind of important, whereas in most Nintendo Directs, it seems like the majority of things, you know, get, like, her farming sims and those kind of things, and those things did kind of exist in this one, but it's not quite as bad as it seems to usually be. So they opened the Nintendo Direct with a little animation of Mario through the years, some concept art and stuff. Of Mario. I think actually most of it was not concept art. It's made to look like concept art, but I believe it's actually more. I don't know if maybe it is official concept art. I don't know. But anyways, and then they brought out Miyamoto. You know, we always see Miyamoto every time there's one of these Mario things. You know, that's when you get to hear from him. You know, they wheel him out of the dungeon. No, I am. That's a joke. It's a joke. Okay. But, you know, we don't really hear from Miyamoto a whole lot, because to be fair, he's not really involved in all that much. I guess he's involved in everything, but he's not, like, actually, like, head honcho on a whole lot, right? Obviously his opinion counts on just about everything, right? The guy's important, but there's not a whole lot of stuff that's, like, he's the main guy, right? Anymore, right? The idea, he's historically important, right? But he's usually not directing things anymore. He might oversee some things, some Mario games and stuff, but he doesn't do quite as much of that stuff nowadays. A lot of the stuff he does is more of, like, the public facing stuff, and he was the guy who talked about the theme parks, who talked about the Nintendo Museum, that kind of stuff. So he's kind of their resident old guy who they bring out for these kinds of things. Anyways, so Miyamoto, they brought out Miyamoto. He said hello. They they showed some more concept art. There's an art gallery, a new art gallery in the Nintendo Museum. That's cool, I suppose. There's also a new 40th anniversary specific ticket to the Nintendo Museum there. I believe that is a Nintendo Museum in Kyoto. I think it's in Kyoto. So there's a new ticket for that. That's kind of cool. But it's, I mean, there's a light display in December, right? Okay, we're really here. This is really the meat and potatoes of the direct. Um, you see why this was an hour long, right? All right, and then they showed Super Nintendo World, and they showed that there's the Orlando one opening up. We already knew this, but I guess they figured it was important to reiterate it here because a lot of people would be watching. So yes, they're opening a new Super Nintendo World. I believe this makes 4 of them because there's one in Osaka. That's like the biggest one, and I think there's one in Tokyo. Maybe there's another big one in Japan. Um, and then over here in the States, they've got the one out in Universal in California. And now they've got Orlando. So there's going to be 4 Nintendo Worlds. Of course, the thing is like, the ones here in the US are way behind the Japanese ones. The Japanese ones have way more stuff because they've been around longer. So there's just, like, the Osaka one. Like, who would go to Nintendo World if it's not the Osaka one? Unless you live, like, right there in Florida or something, I guess. But, like, I'm just like, really? Like, that's so, like, you're missing out on so much stuff by going to the U.S. Anyway, it's a whole thing. I don't know. It is what it is. I guess it'd still be kind of neat to go, but all right. So there's a marathon. They've got a Kyoto. They're in the Kyoto Marathon. I believe the Kyoto Marathon's already a thing. Um, Maybe they're hosting it. I don't know. I'm not really sure how marathons work. I'm sure you can tell by looking at me. I'm not exactly a marathon expert. All right, and then we got to actually like big stuff in the direct, right? So that was a whole preamble. They were like, "Oh, happy birthday to Mario," all this stuff. Because I think again, like I said, the reason they did this direct on a Friday was because it was the day before the anniversary. They weren't going to do a direct on a Saturday, right? That's not something you do. And Friday's already a little weird, but again, they did it just so that they could have it right before the anniversary. All right, so then we saw Mario sitting on a hill under a tree. And of course, there's a lot of things going through my head while I'm seeing this. I'm like, wait, is it actually possible they are announcing a 3D Mario game? But then pretty quickly, I'm like, oh wait, no, this is totally the Mario movie because the art style, right? You can see from the art style, the character model, all that's the same. I was like, okay, this Mario movie 2. I guess that's neat. There's a Monty mole in the ground, blah, blah, blah. This butterfly. They're following this yellow butterfly the entire time. This is like an important piece of the trailer, which I found a little weird. And then the butterfly flies from the ground up to Peach's castle, which takes it a couple seconds. And then in a couple more seconds, it's gone all the way from the top of Peach's castle to space. So either Peach's castle is really tall, or the Mario world has a very, very short atmosphere. But either way, we went to space, and in space, there was a logo. Now, again, I don't know what kind of weird stuff they got going on in space in the Mario universe, but there's like there's some text randomly in space. Maybe it's a constellation, who knows. But anyways, it says the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Of course, I'm saying this like this is a shock to anybody. I think most of you have already heard about this. They had the Luma from the Super Mario Galaxy, except not exactly. I know a lot of people were actually quite upset about this. I'm a little indifferent myself, but as it turns out, the Luma in Super Mario Galaxy, there was a Luma in the first Mario movie, right? And it was just like a reference or whatever. And I do remember back then some people saying, oh, maybe they'll do a Galaxy movie with a Luma. And I'm like, that's dumb. Why would they do a Galaxy movie just because there's a Luma in the first movie? That's dumb. And then I think most people seem to forgot about that. Like, I haven't heard anything about that in a long time. And then now, all of a sudden, here it is again. And I'm sure there's people out there that are like, oh, yep, I knew it. But anyway, so the Mario Galaxy movie, I guess I'm excited for the Mario Galaxy movie. I think the first Mario movie was pretty decent, right? I mean, it was all right. I mean, it was a lot better than I expected it to be, right? It was a decent movie. And then we had Chris Meledandri, apparently. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce his name. He's the dude from Illumination. He's like the main guy at Illumination. I don't know what his title is, but he's like the main guy. And they had a little, he was on I don't say on call, but he obviously wasn't on call. This was a video. But anyways, Miyamoto and then have some like banter through editing. And then you see this dude, and behind him on his shelves, he's got like Princess Peach, and he's got a Yoshi egg, and a question mark block. He's got Bowser on the piano, which is hilarious, by the way. Uh, but anyways, and so he obviously was like, oh, I gotta tone out all the Mario stuff, so so we can record this trailer. And he came to say literally nothing of any importance because he was announcing the cast for the movie. Now, of course, right? You hear Super Mario Galaxy movie, you hear that they're announcing the cast. You're like, oh shoot, we're gonna find out who Rosalina is played by and all this stuff. Nope. Guess what? Chris Pratt. I almost said Platt, like he's some sort of platypus. Chris Pratt is playing Mario. Oh my gosh, who would have thought? And Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach. Oh my gosh, Charlie Day as Luigi. Jack Black as Bowser. Who would have thought? Kevin Michael Richardson as Kamek. I mean, it's the same people, right? So basically they could have just said, Miyamoto could have just said like, oh, with all the same cast as but no, they had to bring out another guy. Anyways, but regardless, it's not even a good criticism. But anyways, all right, then we got to the first actual video game. 7 minutes into the Nintendo Direct for video games, we got our first video game announcement. And that, of course, was Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2. Of course, as soon as I saw Galaxy, I was like, oh, shoot, they're putting out Galaxy and Galaxy 2 together. And then it occurred to me, I was like, oh, wait, what if they just do... What if they just do the first one? And then I was like, oh, wait, maybe it's like 3D All-Stars or bringing it back, but no. It's not. It's just Galaxy and Galaxy 2. So there's no new well, there is new content, kind of. They talked about this for a little while. They showed some gameplay. A lot of people were very quick to be like, oh, well, it doesn't look any better than the Wii. But then they released later on, like a few days after the Direct, Nintendo released on their website some gameplay of Galaxy 1 and 2. And there were a lot of people on YouTube that were analyzing the footage and putting it side by side with the original Galaxies on Wii to figure out if there actually was any retexturing or any of that stuff. And as it turns out, there was actually some retexturing done. There were a few things, especially at the beginning of the game, where they showed, like, at the Star Festival, the pathway that you follow to Peach's Castle. It's a different texture altogether. The stone bricks are like a totally different texture. And some things looked better, some things looked worse. And a lot of people, were pointing out, like, hey, look, obviously, it's not going to look quite as good as it might on the Switch 2, because this is a video embedded in the Nintendo website. And so I think that's something that a lot of people missed with that. And they saw the footage and they're like, because I saw there was a whole headline that I had pulled up. I guess we'll talk about it right now. So let's see if I can find. I'm a mess. Okay. The Gamer reported on this. There were some people on Reddit talking about how Galaxy 1 and 2 on the Switch 2 actually look worse than the Wii versions. And they showed some screenshots. The first one's in Battle Rock Galaxy and Galaxy 2, where you play as Rock Mario. The second one looks like it's the original Galaxy and Good Egg Galaxy, but I could be wrong. Anyways, and they put it side by side with the Wii version, and one of the screenshots was with the 3D All-Stars version, and they said that it looked worse on Switch 2. And looking at the screenshots, to be honest, I'm not really sure I see it. Honestly, it looks pretty much the same to me. Because, like, resolution-wise, it looks about the same. I guess, like, the textures... So, like, it's not anything to do with the resolution, I think. Like, on the Wii, like, in the screenshot of Battle Rock Galaxy, they show there's, like, this bridge. And it's got, like, some different textures, where on the Switch 2 version, it's a very flat texture. And so that, I guess you could argue, looks worse. And then on the one planet and the other screenshot, they're showing that the grass has less texture to it. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's a little weird that they would change the textures to get rid of detail. So, like, I don't know. I'm not really sure. Like, it is possible that these videos were earlier development footage, and they were redoing the textures, but they hadn't put everything there yet. I guess, or maybe they really are just changing the textures and people don't like how the new textures look. But honestly, man, It is like such not a big deal. Uh, like, it's I don't know. And of course, everybody on Reddit, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so concerning. I'm so scared." I'm like, then don't buy it, right? Like, then don't buy it. I don't know what to tell you, man. Just don't buy it. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, like, it really did not seem like much of a difference to me. Some of these textures, some of them actually looked better, right? So I think it's a little bit like cherry picking, to be honest, for the most part. But hey, at the end of the day, the game still looks great, even on the Wii. So obviously, I would expect it to look better. And I guess if I didn't, I would be like, if it didn't, I would be like somewhat disappointed, I guess. But like, I don't know that it's really that huge a thing that a couple of textures you found in the hour-long footage arguably look a little worse than the original. So I don't know. It's not the end of the world. Of course, Galaxy plus Galaxy 2, there's been a lot of criticism against this release, and that mainly has stemmed from the fact that it's $70. And so I've talked about this quite a bit before, but with the Switch 2, the prices are different, right? So with Donkey Kong Bonanza, the game was $70. Mario Kart World, the game was $80, even though I would argue Donkey Kong Bonanza is a more premium game than Mario Kart World. But anyways, that's besides the point. So things have ranged a bit in prices. And I actually think that's generally for the better. I think it's good that there's some variability in prices, because at the end of the day, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker and Tears of the Kingdom should not be the same price. And I guess, to be fair, they weren't on the Switch 1 anyways, but, maybe that was a bad example, but you know what I'm saying. Maybe they can have some $40 games, 50, 60, 70, even 80 for some things. Not Mario Kart World, that's not one of those things. But if they want to put out a 3D Zelda in 5 years and make it $80, I'm not going to complain, right? So I'm sure everybody else will, but I'm not going to complain. So that's kind of my thing with the prices here. I actually like the variability. However, to be honest, I did actually expect that the average price would be either 60 or 70. It would average out between 60 and 70, maybe 65 or so. It seems like the average is actually closer to 70, because it seems like there's a lot more things that are 70 than 60. At the end of the day, is it really that big a deal? No. I mean, games have been $70 for a while now, everywhere else. And just because Nintendo put out one game, that being Mario Kart World, for $80, that doesn't automatically mean that every Nintendo game is more expensive than every other game in the industry. Because it's easy to look at that one example, and then look at, like, one example of a game on PlayStation that's like 60, sometimes they're even $60, sometimes they're $70. But obviously the important thing here is that, as it turns out, the other companies, not Nintendo companies that put out these big games, they want you to believe that their games are $60 or $70, but most of them are actually far more than $60 or $70, generally speaking, because, as it turns out, they put out these Ultimate Editions, and they put out these Deluxe Editions, and they put out the Cosmic and Galactic Editions of the Star Wars games, and all this stuff. And so, what ends up happening is you have games that are actually far more expensive than the Nintendo games. But people, for some reason, are completely blind to this, and just don't even realize that this is happening. Or they'll put out the game and they'll put out the DLC on the same day, and all this stuff, and it really frustrates me. And there is something sort of Nintendo-esque that we'll talk about with that later. But my point is, this is definitely not like people are misrepresenting the issue here. I don't think $70 for a Switch 2 game is bad at all. I think most Switch 2 games that are going to come out are going to be worth $70. However, I should say this. Galaxy plus Galaxy 2 is probably not one that should be $70. I think Galaxy plus Galaxy 2, especially considering it's also coming out on Switch 1, I think it would make more sense at the $60 price point. Or, if they wanted to do a Switch 2 edition that was even a little bit better, then they could do 60 on Switch 1, 70 on Switch 2. But a lot of people out here are like, oh, well, these games should be 30 or 40, and no, I think that makes no sense. Because at the end of the day, the reason why these Mario releases are more is because Nintendo wants to keep the value on Mario. If people go to the store and they see a Mario game, now I know Mario plus Rabbids gets discounted all the time, that's not really on Nintendo, that's on Ubisoft. So as much as they can, Nintendo would like to keep the prices of their big IPs high, right? Because for a few reasons. First of all, people keep buying them, right? So obviously they're worth that. When I go to Walmart 4 months after Persona 3 Reload comes out, and Persona 3 Reload has come from $70 all the way down to $20, obviously the game is not worth the $70 that it came out at. Or the company is just stupid, right? One of the two. So when I come to Walmart in 7 years, 8 years after Breath of the Wild comes out, Breath of the Wild is still the value that it originally came out at. That doesn't mean that Nintendo's greedy. It means that the game is still worth what it was 8 years ago. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, because if I bought Breath of the Wild 8 years ago for $60, and I have the game now, and it's still worth $60, or maybe $50, that's awesome, right? Isn't that good? How is that not good, right? Explain that to me. Wouldn't you like to know that the thing you're buying still has its value? That people care about the thing? Like, I don't understand. It's such a backwards way of thinking that, oh, it's so good that, all these games that, that come out on other platforms, they are worth like 5 cents 2 years later. Like, no, that's not good. Because you're missing out on the resellability if you're not somebody who collects, which is one of the main benefits of physical games. But if you buy a game for $70 and then next year it's $15, yeah, that's not great. All right, that's number one. Number two, those companies are stupid. Why are they discounting these things if they're selling, like, okay. Last Black Friday at Walmart, they had a thing. It was like you get 2 PS5 games for the price of one. And they were putting out games in there that were like 1 year old. You got like Spider-Man 2 out here a year ago. That was half price. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That's stupid. Right? So, I mean, like, on one hand, I'm like, oh, well, cool, I could save some money. But, like, on the other hand, this is why the games that are not Nintendo aren't collected, right? This is why nobody collects the games that aren't Nintendo. This is why nobody recognizes or notices the IPs that aren't Nintendo. And this is why Nintendo games are emulated and other games aren't quite as much. Obviously, it does happen some, right? But this is why Nintendo is valuable. This is why they have valuable IPs. This is why they have a valuable brand. Because they're not going to just, like, throw their stuff out willy-nilly, And so, yes, would I be happy if I could go to Walmart and buy Mario Galaxy plus Mario Galaxy 2 for $15? Sure, right? On some level, right? It'd be cool. I'm like, all right, cool. But I'd also be happy to know that if I buy this game for $70, 10 years from now, it's probably not going to be worth $70, but it might be worth, like, 40 or 50 still. Whereas if it was Halo plus Halo 2... I'd go buy it for maybe 50, right? But then next year it would all of a sudden be a $10 game. So, I don't know. I think overall it's a good thing that the games keep their value. And sometimes games come out a little bit expensive on the Nintendo front, for sure. I agree. It's a little expensive. But you've also got to consider the fact that regardless of how big in scope you think the games are, there's obviously still a lot of work that goes into them. And overall, as a whole, video games are actually very cheap, I would say. I would argue video games are very cheap, if you think about it. Because think about the millions and millions of dollars, especially companies other than Nintendo, but even Nintendo. Think about the millions and millions of dollars they spend on these games. Think about the crazy amount of people that work on these things, right? It's a wonder that these things aren't hundreds of dollars a piece. So, I don't know. At the end of the day, $70 for Galaxy plus Galaxy 2. I probably won't buy it. I might. I don't know. We'll see. I'm definitely not going to buy it on launch. There's no reason to. I'm totally content with playing Galaxy and Galaxy 2 on the Wii. Like, I do it all the time. It's great. They're great versions. And if you're in that camp, then fantastic. You don't have to buy it. Right? So don't go sitting around complaining about how, oh, it's so expensive. Why would anybody ever buy this? Because they want to play the games. Idiot. Like, duh. So, anyways. It's just, like... It irritates me. It irritates me to no end. And of course, yes, the games, I believe, contrary to Reddit's belief, I do actually think the games are going to look a little better on the Switch 2. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh well, it is what it is. Don't buy it. If the textures look bad, don't buy it. Now, one thing that I do think is a little too expensive, and I don't think the same IP stuff really works with the Amiibos. That's the thing. The Amiibos, they're like $40 now, these Amiibos, which is kind of crazy. Especially when the original promise of the Amiibos for the game functionality doesn't really work. So I don't think the amiibos are well priced. I agree the amiibos are too expensive, and that's why, guess what? I know this is a crazy idea, right? I don't buy the amiibos anymore, right? I stopped buying them. They were too expensive, so I didn't buy them. Like, this is pretty simple logic, I think. I think it's pretty simple, right? So I agree. The amiibos are too expensive, and that's why I don't buy them. So there you go. If you think the amiibos are too expensive, then great. We agree on something. Don't buy the freaking amiibos. If you are, you're stupid. I don't know why you'd buy them if you think they're expensive. If you don't think they're expensive, if you think they're a good deal and you want to have them on your shelf, then go for it, right? I'm not happy for you. I envy you, right? Because they look great. They're awesome. They look cool. But they're freaking expensive, so I'm not going to buy them. Problem solved, right? End of story. No further debate needed. And then the other big thing that I talked about with Galaxy and Galaxy 2 is that they've added new Rosalina storybook chapters. Of course, the Rosalina storybook was like kind of a story that you could unlock in the original Galaxy game. They've added new pages in Galaxy, which is awesome. And they've added a whole Rosalina storybook feature in Galaxy 2 as well, because it wasn't there originally. So that's pretty cool as well. And even cooler, you can get the physical Rosalina storybook from the first game as like an actual book, which is kind of neat. And I might even get it, because that's kind of cool. Alright, so that was the first big thing of the Mario anniversary. I guess actually it's not the first big thing. It's the first big game, right? Because the movie is definitely a big thing, but it's not a game. So that was the first big game of the Mario Anniversary Direct. The second thing was Mario Tennis. Mario Tennis, was it Fever or Fury? I can't remember actually what exactly it was called. Fever. Mario Tennis Fever. Okay, so Mario Tennis. They're getting a new game. Who would have thought, right? This is shocking news. Honestly, it makes me wonder. It makes me believe that they only put out new consoles just so they can put out a new Mario Tennis and a Mario Golf game on each one. Just so there's a good reason to put out those games. I don't know. No, obviously that's not the case. But there's obviously going to be a Mario Tennis game. Anybody who's surprised by this is stupid. Obviously there's a Mario Tennis game. Duh, right? Who would have thought? It's coming out in February. That's pretty cool. I don't do a whole lot of online stuff, so this doesn't really interest me too much. The gameplay, a lot of people were like, oh, it looks kind of generic. That's the point. Mario Tennis is supposed to be kind of generic with a little bit of Mario twist. But if you don't want to buy it, don't buy it. I probably won't. I don't know. I'm thinking about it because there's not going to be a whole lot next year so far that we know of. And there's an adventure mode where you play as Baby Mario. And it actually looks like the adventure mode, from the very small amount of stuff we saw from it, it looks like the adventure mode is RPG-ish, and it looks like it might actually end up being better than some of the adventure modes on some of the more recent Mario Tennis games. So, I don't know. I'll probably wait till it comes out, see what other people think of the campaign, and if other people think it's good, then maybe I'll consider buying it. Alright, so the next thing I don't have a whole lot to say about, because they didn't have a whole lot to say about it either, and that was the Super Mario Bros. Wonder Switch 2 edition. Obviously, this is not at all surprising. Everybody knew this was going to happen. As soon as I found out about Switch 2 editions and that first Switch 2 presentation, I was like, oh, okay, Wonder is going to get one of these. And it did, or it is getting one. It hasn't yet, but it's going to get one. And that is for Meetup in Bella Bell Park. Bella Bell Park is a little place where you can do a bunch of co-op and co-optional activities with some friends and Wonder. That's cool, I guess. So there were a lot of these things. Some of them it was about collecting coins. Some of them were speedrunning. Some of them you had to like kill a bunch of enemies to get lives. There was some like tag stuff. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. So basically, there's these little, like, stationary levels. Some of them are actually full levels from the game. You can run around with 4 people and do little mini-games within levels. That's pretty cool. I think it's a neat thing. Should it have been there from the start? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe they just hadn't thought about it. I'm not really too upset about it. It is what it is. I don't really care. I'm not going to buy it based on that. However, they did say that there was more stuff coming. And they were going to talk about it in the future, which to me, in the future means February. That's my guess, the February Direct, because I don't think we're getting any other presentation. Like, based on, like, rules from the past about Nintendo Directs, we're not getting any other presentation this year. So, I'm going to assume that they're going to stick with that. We're not going to get any more presentations. We're done until February, and we'll hear about Mario Bros. Wonder, the Switch 2 edition, in February. And if there's enough like single player stuff that they talk about there, like if they're adding a new world or something, then I might go ahead and buy the upgrade pack. But just based on the meetup in Delabelle Park, I'm alright. Now, that said, I missed this when I was first watching the Direct, and I heard about it later. The Koopalings come by for like a quick second. You see the Koopalings fly past the screen, and then you see a couple people from the Toad Brigade. There's the Blue Toad and Captain Toad. And so the implication is that there might be some new story content. Obviously, I expect there to be. If there isn't going to be, that would be kind of weird, right? But I do assume there's going to be something single player related, and we'll hear about that in February. And if it's a new world, it's a new couple of worlds, then I'll definitely buy it. But if it's just like a couple little things, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I may end up upgrading Mario Wonder next year when that comes out. So. But if that is going to come out, it probably won't be till like spring or even summer, because we're not hearing about it till February. So that's my guess, but we'll see what happens. Next up, we had a weird thing. It's a talking flower from Super Mario Bros. Wonder. These guys have come to be pretty popular in the Mario series. Obviously, they were in Mario Bros. Wonder, but now they're also in the Mario Party Jamboree DLC. And I thought we saw them in Mario Tennis as well. So it definitely seems like they're getting to be a little bit more common, and they're definitely becoming a pretty significant portion of the Mario universe, which is pretty cool. You know, I want a talking flower amiibo personally. I think that'd be great, but not that I think that's likely, but it would be kind of funny. But yeah, so this is like a desk thing. It's like a desk accessory. It's coming out next year in the spring, and yeah, it's it's a talking flower. I don't know all the details. Like, I'm not sure if it's going to talk to you like all the time. Like, how often is this thing going to talk? Can you make it talk to you, or is it just random? Is it voice activated, or is it just, you know, again, is it just random? I don't really know. But it seems kind of neat. I'm not going to buy one, but it's kind of cool. Next up, this was a really weird announcement. Well, to be honest, I did kind of expect it. But when I first saw it, it's Yoshi, right? I saw Yoshi on screen, and I saw that it wasn't the Whirly World art style. And something about the way it was originally presented, with the bird, you know, going across the sky and Yoshi looking up at the sky, I honestly thought originally that this was some 3D platformer with Yoshi. But as it turns out, it is just another 2D Yoshi game. And, you know, in some ways, this looks like a bit of a departure from the Whirly World and Crafted World style of Yoshi game. You know, I think most people, me definitely being one of them, I think a lot of us are getting a little sick of that kind of Yoshi game. I know I didn't play Crafted World, and I never quite beat Whirly World, but I got, like, right towards the end. This game is Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, coming out in the spring. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not quite the same as Crafted World or Woolly World, but it seems similar enough, to be honest, that I'm not too terribly interested. I'm guessing I'm not going to play this Yoshi game, or if I do, it'll be years from now, because it just does not seem particularly appealing. I know it kind of seems like this is a little bit more story-based of a 2D platformer, but, you know, as far as 2D platformers go, Mario's kind of my guy, right? I love Mario, and then after Mario, I also love Donkey Kong, and I like Kirby. I would say Kirby's a little bit lower than Donkey Kong generally, but yeah, I would say it's Mario, the Donkey Kong's pretty close, Kirby's pretty close to Donkey Kong, and those are kind of my three guys. Like, Yoshi's really, I'm not a huge fan of Yoshi, and it used to be I was a Mario guy, and then I really, Donkey Kong opened up for me, and I really loved Donkey Kong, but I wasn't really a fan of Kirby or Yoshi until last year. I would say last year I had my Kirby awakening, and now all of a sudden I'm quite a big Kirby fan as well, but I still really don't like Yoshi. I played through Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. I know a lot of people love that game. I'm not one of those people. I don't think it's very good. And I know, you know, I know that's an unpopular opinion, but yeah, it's just not all that appealing to me for many reasons. It's very puzzly, and while yes, I do appreciate puzzles in 2D platformers to some extent, it almost feels like there's basically no action, because all you're doing is puzzling. And I'm not, like, the egg mechanic, I don't think is particularly interesting. I know that's kind of the main hedge of most of the Yoshi games. I also just don't like the way Yoshi controls when compared to Mario or. Yeah, honestly, I think Mario controls the best out of all of four of those. Mario, Donkey Kong, Kirby, and Yoshi. I honestly, Donkey Kong, he's a little heavy. And I know that's kind of the point, right? He's literally Donkey Kong. But I still do prefer the way Mario handles. And Donkey Kong's fine, but he's a little heavy. Kirby's obviously quite floaty. Sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. But there's not really a situation where I like the way Yoshi controls. I just really just don't like Yoshi. And that goes for outside of Yoshi games as well. I don't like how Yoshi controls in Mario Sunshine or in Galaxy 2. Like, it's just kind of a thing for me. Whenever Yoshi's involved, I'm not really a huge fan of playing as him or playing as Mario riding him. It's cool that Yoshi exists. I can respect the character. I think the best implementation of Yoshi in any Mario game, I guess, is probably the new Soup series. I like the Baby Yoshis and the new Soup series, and specifically in New Super Mario Bros. U. And then also the original Super Mario World is a pretty good implementation of Yoshi, but basically every other implementation of Yoshi I don't really like, all for different reasons, but. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox about Yoshi. I'm not a huge Yoshi guy, but I guess it is kind of cool. This is going to be one of the bigger things next year, I think, before Nintendo. It seems like a big, like, it does seem like a second year. Like, this seems like the kind of thing that could have came out on the Switch in 2018. I know Crafted World ended up coming out in 2019 instead, but it does seem like that kind of thing. The only other thing I do have to say on Yoshi is I find it a little strange that this is actually coming out. I know a lot of people have talked about Yoshi games for a while and the possibility of one coming out, or one being announced at the 3D Mario, or at the Mario Anniversary Direct. I know there's been a rumor for a little while, but honestly, I am kind of surprised about a Yoshi game being announced because presumably Goodfeel is making this. You know, Goodfeel have made the last couple of Yoshi games, but they just made Showtime just like 2 years ago. 2023, that game came out in April. So, I don't know, it seems like a pretty quick turnaround, which I think means one of two things. Either number one, this Yoshi game has been well into development for a long time, and they were just waiting for a good reason to put it out, obviously that being the Switch 2. So this has been done for a few years, and they just didn't bother putting it on the Switch 1, because why would they? Or thing number two is that this game was made very quickly, and even though the art style is different, potentially there are still some aspects of it that are reused from Crafted World. So I'm not really entirely sure what the case is, but either way, it's definitely a bit of a surprise to me. I know maybe it's not a surprise to everybody, but it is a surprise to me. Alright, we had Stormlancers. I know I was talking earlier about how there were very few games in this Direct that felt like filler. This is one of, I would say, two. This is one of, like, two games that very much did feel like filler. There's really no way about it, way around it. This is very much, it's a filler thing. I don't know why it was here. I don't know why anybody would care about this game. I'm a little confused. Doesn't look particularly good. It seems like a co-op kind of thing, and I know a lot of people are into co-op kind of things, but really this just not seem like all that appealing. And then, of course, they had to put the other thing that nobody cares about right afterwards. This is Dinkum. This is looks like a kind of farming sim, kind of Minecraft-y. At least that's what they're going for. It doesn't actually, I don't think it'll end up being anything like Minecraft, but I think that's what they're going for, especially with the QB art style. And also the art style, I think, kind of reminds me of Tomodachi Life, or also of My Sims. I don't know if anybody remembers the My Sims games, back, like, in the Wii era. But it kind of reminds me of that as well, or even kind of like Mies, you know, specifically like Pilot Wings Resort. That's the kind of vibes I get from this, except it's like a co-op thing and like a survival thing, and it doesn't really seem, honestly, it doesn't seem very good. And then here was the other thing that I don't think was quite as bad. Personally, I'm not interested in this, but I wouldn't put it as quite in the same category as like those other ones. This game was Popucom. And this one looks a lot like Splatoon. I know I've heard this going about in quite a bit. It looks quite a bit like Splatoon, but with platforming. And when I first saw this, I was like, ooh, this looks kind of interesting. But then it came up in the trailer and it said multiplayer only, and I was like, oh, okay, never mind. So I know a lot of people are interested in this one, and I agree, it looks kind of neat, but I'm not much of a multiplayer guy, so I imagine I won't end up ever playing this one. I definitely won't play it anytime soon. So yeah, I'm gonna guess probably never on this one for me. This seems like an interesting concept, but again, I'm just not much of a multiplayer guy, whether that's co-op or competitive, whatever the case. Next up, we heard about Tamagotchi Life. Honestly, didn't hear much about Tamagotchi Life. They basically put the Mii Maker in Tamagotchi Life, because I know the Mii Maker on the Switch is not particularly robust. I've not looked at it on the Switch too, but I assume it's pretty much the same thing. So yeah, you can make your character. You can, I don't know, do Tamagotchi life things. Like, I know the idea here is that this is kind of like the substitute for the Animal Crossing audience, but I know I'm not the general Animal Crossing fan. I am an Animal Crossing fan, but I'm not the normal Animal Crossing fan. I'm a bit strange of an Animal Crossing fan, and so this just, for me, this is like absolutely, like, I would not like this at all. There's absolutely nothing about this that would be appealing. I don't imagine I would ever get into this game or even enjoy my time with it for more than a couple hours. It doesn't seem at all entertaining. And honestly, I feel like there's a pretty large portion of the Animal Crossing audience that would not be into this. So I don't know. It's what it is. I know a lot of people will be happy about it. It'll sell well. It'll be a big release for next year, and those things I'm of course happy about, even if personally I'm not going to be too into it. But it's just not really my thing. All right, next up, we were hearing about games that were coming out on the Switch 2 and on the Switch 1. The first one of course, was the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. Of course, this is the 17th Mortal Kombat collection that's come out just this year. No, I honestly, I've not really played Mortal Kombat. I actually don't have any. Well, that's not true. I do have Mortal Kombat 2 on Super Nintendo, and I believe I have the first one. It's actually right above my head right here. Let me just just confirm real quick that I do in fact. I'm like standing up right now looking at my shelves. Um, I don't play a lot of my Super Nintendo games, so I don't know entirely which ones I have. All right, it seems like I have both Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. So I have the first two there. On Super Nintendo, I know some people like the Genesis version of 2 better. I think actually most people do. But anyways, I've not really played Mortal Kombat. I did at a friend's house couple years ago. Maybe a year ago. I don't know. It was a while back. I did play a little bit of Mortal Kombat 11, I believe it was. It was cool. I mean, it was an interesting. It was fine. It was cool. I'm not much of a fighting game guy, and I think Smash is better. But I can respect the fighting game community. It seems kind of entertaining. And so again, I'm not much of a multiplayer guy, and so that's kind of my issue here. And also, I mean, how many Mortal Kombat games are there? I mean, surely there must be a ton here, because I'm not familiar with the Mortal Kombat series. Like, I'm not, like, intimately familiar with the Mortal Kombat series. Obviously, I understand, I get the idea, but it's not one of those things where, like, I would recognize most of these games. So when I see another Mortal Kombat collection, I'm like, really? There's another one of those? Like, how do they even have enough games to put out this many collections? I don't know. But whatevs. Then, of course, we heard about Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. This, of course, is the version coming out on the Xbox and also on Switch 2. Of course, they're not talking about the Xbox and the Nintendo Direct, but this is the Switch 2 version of Final Fantasy. I know I talked about this last episode. The demo at Gamescom, a lot of people were saying Final Fantasy VII at Gamescom looked incredible on Switch 2, and it ran pretty well. So I don't know. I'm going to wait and see after it comes out, and I very well could end up playing it on Switch 2. I would say I probably will. Probably will play it on Switch 2. I'm going to play it at some point, right? I'm working through the Final Fantasy series. My idea here is to play 1 through 7, and I do mean the original 7. And then after 7, I may continue with 8, or I may stop and play Remake. I'm not really sure yet. Maybe I'll even do both at the same time. I don't know. We'll see what happens. And I might rotate. Maybe I'll play, after 7, maybe I'll play Remake, but then I'll go play 8, and then I'll come back for Rebirth. Like, I don't know, but my point is I have to play 1 through 7 before I play the Remake trilogy, and I have to play 1 through 7 before I play 8. As far as other than that, it doesn't really matter to me too much. I guess I did actually forget about one other filler game. That, of course, was Linner, or not Linner, Linked, Banner of the Spark. This is like I guess it's a hack and slash. I don't know. I don't know. It was like there was some weird stuff. Like they had like Animal Crossing house design, but then they also had farming sim, and they had like I don't know. This game's already out actually too. All right, then we had Hades 2. When this first came up, I thought it was actually that other game that Bastion, or not Bastion. The game Bastion? Blighted. I thought it was Drinkbox's Blighted when I first saw the first cutscene, but of course I haven't played Hades, so that's probably why I got those two confused. But then of course as things continued, I was like, oh wait, no, this is definitely Hades. It's not Blighted, but yeah, Hades 2. They showed about half a second of gameplay, and then like 30 minutes of cutscenes, but. Obviously, that makes sense because the game's been out in a beta for like 100 years, so everybody's seen it. But it's just I thought it a little strange. There's very little gameplay here. You would think that this would be the big marketing push where they just show a little bit more gameplay than they did, but I don't know. Whatevs. I don't have a ton of interest in Hades. I could see myself maybe playing it at some point, like a couple years from now, but I don't think I'm gonna get into it anytime soon. Right, then, of course, we talked about Kirby Air Ride. I do believe or Air Riders, I should say. I do believe there's still supposed to be another. They announced at this presentation that there was supposed to be another direct. So I find it strange that we're talking about this game so much. It's obviously not going to be as big as, as they're expecting, I don't think. But I don't know, maybe I'll be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, right? I'd love for the game to do better than I think. But I'm not gonna. Not gonna go placing my bets on that one. They did show off the amiibo for Kirby Air Riders, and it's a bit of a Skylanders Swap Force situation, if you know what I'm talking about. For those who don't know, if you're not a Skylanders guy, I'm not particularly a Skylanders guy, but I do have quite a few Skylanders. Some of them I had when I was quite young, but then others I have picked up more recently because I found them super cheap at a couple different places. And honestly, Skylanders look pretty cool on a shelf. I really like Skylanders. I also have a bunch of Disney Infinity figures, but I don't like those ones quite as much. But I do have more attachment to the Disney Infinity games. That's kind of the thing with me with the Toys to Life stuff, right? There's the few. Most recently there was Starlink. I don't have any Starlink. I don't really plan to get any Starlink. But then, of course, the OGs. I guess you could talk about the Pokemon ones for that. What was that game on the Wii U that used those things that scanned in? Oh man, what was that called? I'm gonna look it up. There was that game on the Wii U. Oh man, it's gonna kill me. Pokemon Rumble U. That was that's what that was. Yeah, I almost thought there might have been a 3DS one as well, but it doesn't really matter. But yeah, they did that with that, and then there was even back in the day, there were the cards on the Game Boy. There have been a few things. There was also the e-reader cards on the 3DS. There's always been a few things like that, right? But as far as the actual Toys to Life, like the figures and stuff, it really kind of started with Skylanders, I would say. And then Disney Infinity came out, and then, of course, you had Nintendo's Amiibos, right? But the Amiibos were not for games. They were for, except for Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. But they were, they were to unlock things in games. I actually am going to talk quite a bit about Amiibos later in this episode. For those of you guys who didn't notice, about 30 so minutes into this episode, there was a cut. And I think I talked about this at the beginning of the show. But the episode's coming out later than I expected it to. And I had to record the last part of this, like, last minute. And so it's a little weird, but we're going to be talking about Amiibos and stuff that I bought recently in the later part of the show. But anyway, the reason I'm bringing up Amiibos is because they showed off these two Amiibos. There's Kirby on the Warp Star, not cart, but it's like a, you know what I mean? Like, whatever he's on, his hover thing, his vehicle, and then Bandana Waddle Dee and the Winged Star. And the two of these, apparently they're supposed to be able to separate, so you can, like, take Kirby off of the Warp Star and put Waddle Dee on there, or you can take Kirby and put him on the Winged Star, the Warp Star, there's the two of them. I'm gonna guess there's actually gonna be more Amiibos for Kirby Air Riders, but it might depend on how well they do. I would say no Amiibo is gonna do very well when they're, like, $40 at this point, but, oh well. Oh yeah, it actually does say more Kirby Air Riders amiibo updates in the future. I missed that last time. So yeah, there's obviously gonna be more amiibos. That's cool. You know, more Kirby amiibos are cool. But amiibos are in a bit of a weird spot right now because they're so expensive. And I did talk about this earlier with the Mario Galaxy ones. And, you know, I know I've very much been in the camp of supporting Nintendo on a lot of their price stuff because I don't think it's quite as egregious as a lot of people seem to claim. But the amiibo stuff is a little much. Like, those amiibos were originally like, what, like $12 or maybe 15? I don't think they were quite 15. I think they were like 13 maybe. And then they were 16 for years and years and years. And now they're up to like 40. They're a little variable. I think there's some that are like 30, others that are like 40 some. I imagine these Kirby ones might even be more than 40. Maybe they'll be $50. I don't know. Um, but yeah, it definitely doesn't seem right, you know, with the amiibos being that expensive. Like, I'm a little confused as to why they're so expensive. I'm not sure if potentially they just depending on where they were manufacturing them with the current, you know, global economic situation, maybe they're manufacturing them in Southeast Asia or something. I really don't know. I would assume there's a good chance they're doing that. But either way, it just seems weird that has, I mean, like, Amiibos in the last couple of years, I mean, they're like 3 times what they were. I guess not 3 times, like over twice though. They're more than double what they were a couple of years ago. So that's a little strange. But anyways, regardless, it is what it is. I don't want to get into all that stuff too much, but amiibos specifically have been a little much. I don't think the games are that bad, but the amiibos definitely are that bad. The good news with the amiibos is like there's really no like they're really only there for the craziest of collectors. So if you're like a Nintendo fan, you like to play all the games, there's no reason why you need amiibos unless you just think they look cool, right? And that's the only reason to buy them. So I don't know. Anyways, then they showed off the Age of what is it? Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment, I believe is the full title here. I play Age of Imprisonment. It's coming out in November. So is Kirby Air Riders actually. Both those games come out in November. I feel like both of those could potentially sell decently, right? Like I feel like both of them have potential to sell all right. It's kind of interesting that they're both coming out the same month because I feel like they'll I don't think they'll compete with each other per se because they're kind of filling a different audience, but it's definitely going to feel like there's a lot going on, which is good that there's a lot going on, but I kind of wish there'd been more going on for the last few months, but oh well. It is what it is, right? But yeah, so Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, to be honest, this game does look pretty good. There's some really weird things with it. I know like on the box art, there's like this hooded guy who's like a construct from Tears of the Kingdom for those who have played it. I guess actually pretty much everybody's played it, so I don't even know why most people have played more of it than I have, so I don't even know why I'm even bringing that up. But anyway, there's like this weird looking guy who's like kind of like replacing Link because Link doesn't exist in that time. So there's like some weird stuff with this, and I've seen a lot of people online, like, you know, talking about him and showing him and stuff. And I don't know, but it's just kind of funny to me. But yeah, so Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, it looks like a lot of the same, like, pretty decent gameplay. The gameplay has always been pretty decent on these Hyrule Warriors games, I think. The only problem is they're obviously repetitive, and that's kind of the whole point, right? I mean, with these Musha games, or whatever, they're just repetitive, like, it's almost character action genre, right? It's also like kind of like a beat 'em up brawler. I know we don't get a lot of those anymore, but anyways, they're kind of their own thing at this point. But yeah, I would say, you know, the Hyrule Warriors games, it's a pretty good gameplay system. Like I think they're quality games. But there's been a few problems with the Hyrule Warriors games. Obviously, one of the big ones was performance, right? Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U does not run great. And it doesn't look great either, but I don't usually care too much about that. But it really doesn't run great, and that's the big problem. It's pretty laggy, choppy, even some crashes here and there. Not great. And then they ported it over to the 3DS, and as you can imagine, that's even worse. And then they put it on Switch, and it does run significantly better on the Switch, but it's still not great. So yeah, there was a lot of issues with that original game, Hyrule Warriors. And then Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity looked a lot better. Like, it looks a lot better than Hyrule Warriors, the original. But it also has a lot of performance issues. I would say in some ways it's better, in some ways it's worse. I haven't, like, played a lot of these games at all. I actually did play quite a bit of Age of Calamity, but I don't necessarily know what I'm talking about. I'm just, like, basing off footage and stuff I've seen. But Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, from what we saw here, and I don't believe this is coming out on the Switch 1. I think it's just on Switch 2, which I would assume, right? Surely this can't run on Switch 1. It actually looked pretty good. Now, of course, I'm sure they got the best footage they could. But some of this footage did actually have a lot of characters on the screen, a lot of enemies on the screen, and I think that was probably by design. I think they purposefully made it. They picked clips with a lot of characters so that they could kind of convey the idea that does actually run really well, and it seems pretty decent. It seems pretty solid. So I'm going to say that Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment is probably going to run pretty good at launch, and I'm kind of interested in playing it at some point. But I'd like to actually get around to playing through Tears of the Kingdom, and I also kind of want to play all the Hyrule Warriors games again. Or I say again, I've never beat any of them. I'd like to play the first one for the first time. I'd like to go back to the Age of Calamity, and at some point, I'd like to go to this third one here. And so I'm kind of interested, but I'm definitely not going to pick them up on day one or anything. It'll probably be in a couple of years, honestly. But anyways, then we had a thing that was obviously an RPG from the offset. I was like, all right, this is an RPG. And I didn't actually know immediately what it was, and it might be partially because of my unfamiliarity with the series. But pretty quickly, I was like, wait a minute, I think this is maybe like Dragon Quest, right? And then the trailer went on and on and on, and finally, I was like, this has got to be Dragon Quest, right? And sure enough, it was. They're remaking Dragon Quest VII. Which is a little strange. It's a little out of the blue. I know there was a leak. At this point, it's been quite a few weeks because these episodes come out so infrequently now, and this one's also late. So a lot of this news that happened, I think, pretty recently in terms of the podcast has actually been quite a while now. But anyways, so Dragon Quest VII is getting a remake, but there was a leak a while back about how there was going to be like 3 sevens in the upcoming Nintendo Direct, and obviously everybody speculated that, or everybody was pretty positive that one of them had to be Final Fantasy VII Remake, and that the other one, a lot of people were saying could be Dragon Quest VII, and I found that a little weird. I was like, why would they remake Dragon Quest VII? And a lot of people are still finding it weird, because obviously they remade Dragon Quest III last year, the HD 2D remaster of that, and then they did 1 and 2. Those are coming out this year, next month actually. And so between, they remade the original trilogy, so I think the assumption, for me at least, and I assume for a lot of other people, was that they would go remake the second trilogy, because for those who don't know, Dragon Quest is kind of split into 3 trilogies, the older ones. There's the 1, 2, 3 trilogy. I know there's names for these. I'm not super familiar. I don't know the names. But 3, 1, 2, because it's chronologically, it's not perfect. It's like the 3 is the prequel to 1 and 2. And then the second trilogy, I believe, is in order. So it's 4, 5, 6 is another trilogy. And then 7, 8, 9 is a third trilogy. And then Dragon Quest X was an MMO in Japan only. And then 11S is a more recent game. It's a pretty recent game. And that's kind of standalone. But anyways, so it's a little strange that they kind of skipped over that middle trilogy of those 3 original trilogies. I'm not sure if they're going to come back to it or if they're just not remaking those ones at all. I don't know. My theory is that maybe for the older ones that are still pixel art, they're going to HD 2D remaster all 6 of them. But then for 7, 8, and 9, they're going to do these 3D remakes, and they have different teams on them. So my theory is that when one team was making 3, and now 1 and 2, the other team in that same amount of time finished 7. And they started around the same time. So now we're going to see maybe Dragon Quest IV as the next one, and then maybe we'll get like 8, and then we'll get 5, and then we'll get 9, and then we'll get 6, right? So I think at some point all of them are going to get remade, but they're not going to come out necessarily in release or in chronological order. But anyways, so there's a lot of stuff with that. Then of course we got the biggest announcement of the entire Direct by far. Everybody, this is a very exciting thing. I mean, honestly, it's right up there with like the Mario Galaxy movie and that kind of stuff. The Nintendo Today app is getting a Kirby theme. I know. No, but really, there was also a pretty big announcement, and that, of course, was Virtual Boy Switch Online. I'm sorry, what? When I saw this, I was pretty. I found that very crazy when I first heard about Virtual Boy Switch Online. I actually heard about it from my dad before I even watched the Direct. And I was like, what? How does that even work? So yeah, the Virtual Boy Switch Online, I didn't touch on this earlier. I wanted to circle back to it, but obviously this is, I think, the most exciting announcement from the Direct. So the games we're getting for Virtual Boy Switch Online, Virtual Boy Wario Land. That was one of the better ones on the Virtual Boy. A lot of people liked that game. Galactic Pinball, it's a pretty generic pinball game. Red Alarm is like a shmup, basically. It's like one of those like flying ones where you're in an airship. Teleroboxer, a lot of people see it as kind of the spiritual successor to Punch Out. Obviously, there have been other Punch Outs as well, but it's very similar to Punch Out, but just not by name. Mario Tennis. This is actually the first Mario Tennis game. Actually, the first Mario Sports game, I guess, kind of, unless you count like NES Open. Um, Jack Brothers is a super rare, super expensive RPG. Vertical Force, I actually don't know off the top of my head what that is. It looks like some sort of other spaceship. Maybe it's another, like, Gradius kind of thing. Mario Clash, that's very similar to the original Mario Brothers arcade game, the one from 1983, where you like, have this, like, the POW block in the middle, and you're in the sewers, and you can hit, like, the Koopas and stuff from underneath them. But it's in 3D, so you can, like, pick up a shell and then, like, throw it back to the background or throw it up to the foreground. There's a lot of cool stuff with Mario Clash. It's definitely one of the more interesting games on the console. Then there's just golf, just generic golf. I find it interesting that they like put out regular golf alongside Mario's Tennis, right? Like you would have thought they would have just done Mario's Tennis and Mario's Golf, but Mario Golf didn't come around till the 64. So I'm not sure what was up with that. I don't know, maybe they were going to do Mario Golf, but then the system was failing so miserably that they just ported it over to, like, I guess they couldn't really have ported it to 64 because the consoles are so different. So maybe they just completely scrapped the idea and made a new one on 64, and they just never got around to doing the Mario's Golf, and they just, I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know. But anyways, there's also Virtual Bowling, which introduced a lot of sports characters that ended up being reused in the Game Boy Color Mario Tennis and Golf games, which is an interesting fact. I don't need to go through all of these. There's like Space Invaders. Let's see. There's basically old school Tetris, but then there's also 3D Tetris. 3D Tetris is, I think, one of the most interesting versions of Tetris. Not that I've played it, but from looking at it, it's one of the more interesting versions of Tetris, and it's kind of, I guess it's kind of the first one in 3D. So that's the cool thing about the Virtual Boy, right? There's a lot of cool innovation with the Virtual Boy. Obviously the two big problems with the Virtual Boy, the library is awful. There's barely anything there. Number one. Number two, they're very inaccessible. It's very difficult and very expensive to get a Virtual Boy nowadays. And then the other big thing is, of course, the abysmal sales, which led to very little support. There was no, like, third-party support. Even Nintendo barely supported the thing. They put out, like, a couple games and called it good. And it was also kind of a weird timing, I think, as well, with it, being so close to the 64. There were already so many rumblings and stuff about the 64, and so, I don't know. I think there's a lot of reasons why the Virtual Boy wasn't all it was cracked up to be originally, but it's kind of a shame, too. But luckily, I think we're kind of rectifying the issue now, all these years later. I guess it's like kind of the 30th anniversary of the Virtual Boy, if you think about it. But anyway, so the Virtual Boy, it's going to be released in February 17th, I believe. I can go double check that. But it's also going to have the Virtual Boy headset, which I believe you're going to need to play the games. I know a lot of people not too happy about this one. This actually was getting more complaints than Mario Galaxy was. Yeah, it's $125 for the dock. So basically, what this Virtual Boy thing is it's literally a dock without all the extra power. So you're losing some of that extra power. But the Switch 1 dock was $80 at launch. So even if they could get it down to like 75 or so, right? But then you've got to factor in that there might be some extra technology I'm not thinking about here. And then on top of that, of course it's going to be priced up a little bit, right? I mean, they're not going to price the thing at $80 and not just push it up to 100. Like, I think 100, is it a little bit more than makes sense? Maybe a little, right? But it's not much. They're not inflating it much here. I think $80 would be like, it would be a steal, right? And so if $80 is a steal, then $100 is still got to be pretty decent, right? And of course, they're attaching the Virtual Boy name on this. They've got to factor in that they're like putting work into developing all of these games and making them work on the Virtual Boy Virtual Console. And on top of that, nobody's buying the Switch Online subscription to play Virtual Boy games. So the Virtual Boy games don't add much value to their subscription, but they also take a lot of resources to put out. And so really Nintendo is doing this, I think, just as like a not almost as a celebration, right? Now, yes, it's an item that they're selling, right? They're making money off selling this Virtual Boy headset. Yes, right? Of course. But honestly, I think they're mostly doing this as a preservation thing. Because the Virtual Boy is very much abandoned. It's been gone for like 30 years. It's hard to find one. They're expensive. And honestly, I do think that's what's going on here. Is Nintendo is giving you a way to play them. And you know what? If $100 is too much for you, you don't have to buy it. And if $100 is too much for you, they've also put out a cardboard version. This is also a cardboard version, which is only $25. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is not really that bad a deal. I don't understand why this is such a crazy thing everybody's talking about. Like, yeah, I mean, is it $100 decent amount of money? Yeah, I guess, right? I mean, but really, I don't think it's that bad. I really don't think it's that bad to make it a little bit more expensive than a game. Because really, again, this is only being sold to the most hardcore of Nintendo fans. Nobody else is even going to be at all interested in this. And so we don't mind spending a little bit more because honestly, this is what everybody's asking for Nintendo and what they've been asking for so long. I don't understand why this is such a complaint, right? Because you hear all the time people complaining about how, oh, Nintendo doesn't preserve their games. And I'm sitting over here like, well, I don't know, man. There's like 500 games, not 500. It's probably like 300 games on the Switch Online service. Like, I feel like they're doing pretty good with a lot of this stuff. And so, yeah, sure. Okay, fine. I can't play NES Tournament Open on the NES, right? But you know what? Just buy a freaking NES if you want to play it that badly, right? And I know there's a lot of people that emulate stuff. I don't recommend emulating stuff. I don't like to emulate stuff. But hey, if you're going to do you, you do you. You just be quiet about it. I don't need you constantly telling me that I should do it, blah, 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 right? Like, you do you. If you want to emulate NES Tournament Open, whatever. Like, you do you. Now, when you go posting that stuff online and you post tutorials on how to do it and you flaunt it and you put your websites up and Nintendo takes it down, I'm not going to feel bad for you, right? Because they have every right to do so. And so that's where I've always stood with that stuff. I'm not going to like hunt you down with like a friggin' rifle because you're emulating Nintendo's games. Like, who cares, right? Like, guys, Nintendo does, right? And if Nintendo wants to care, good for them, right? It's their freaking stuff. So, I don't know. The legality is a whole gray area. Whatever. It is what it is. If you want to emulate Virtual Boy games, freaking go for it, man. If you don't want to play Virtual Boy games, then don't. Right? If you think $100 is too much, then spend the $25. And if you think the $25 is too much, then don't freaking buy it. Right? Like, it's pretty simple stuff. I don't think this has got, like, we don't have to sit around all day complaining about how crazy expensive the Virtual Boy is. I don't think it's that bad. And this is exactly what everybody's been asking for years from Nintendo. To give us ways to play old games that make people not turn to emulation. Over and over again, I hear from these people that emulate all sorts of Nintendo games. They're like, oh, well, if Nintendo would only give me a way to play these games on a modern console, then I want to have to do emulation. And again, there are frickin' ways, idiots. There's ways, right? And of course, they're not going to be free, right? It's not like I'm just going to like call up Nintendo and be like, hey, I'd like to claim my free Switch Online subscription. And on top of that, I'd like to, can you ship me over the Virtual Boy? I'll even pay shipping, right? No, of course they're going to freaking sell the thing. Like, what are you, stupid? And so you can't both be saying that, oh, I wish Nintendo would give me a way to play the games, but then also freak out when they give you a way to play the games and it costs money. Like, of course it freaking costs money. But, like, duh! I don't know, whatever. I'll get off my soapbox, but really, this one makes me mad. The complaints really make me mad on this one. People are just stupid, like, on it's just stupidity. I think it's cool. I think it's awesome that we're getting Virtual Boy games. Is it stupid? Of course it's stupid, right? Like, Virtual Boy, there's no value in Virtual Boy games. There's a couple that have neat concepts and they're not executed well. It hurts your eyes, all this stuff, right? But it's cool stuff. It's innovative stuff. It's old stuff. I love old stuff. It's a cool thing. And for any real Nintendo fans who don't freak out about $100 Virtual Boys, I think it's cool. I think it's a really cool thing. And we're going to get basically the whole library. Now, I'm sure I'll be complaining because it'll take 5 years to come out. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I'll play the games when they come out. My Virtual Boy headset's not going to expire. My Switch 2 is not going to expire. I'm gonna keep buying the subscription, so it's not that big a deal, right? Like, it is what it is. You know, like, as long as something's coming out on Switch Online. And there is stuff. There was Klonoa and that other puzzle game dropped the other day. I can't even remember the name of it. But yeah, so there's still stuff coming out on Switch Online. It is what it is. And now I hope that the Virtual Boy games come out sooner rather than later, but again, I recognize that it probably will not be the case. But yeah, I think it's a great thing. I'm pretty excited about it. I'll definitely be buying it. I don't know if I'll buy it day one, because they are Virtual Boy games. Like, if I happen to not have $100, I'm willing to blow the day it comes out. I can wait, right? Like, it's not the end of the world. But I'd like to definitely check it out sometime next year. All right, the next thing in the presentation was Fatal Frame 2, Crimson Butterfly. This is a remake of that game. To be honest with you, I know basically nothing about Fatal Frame. Like, so I'll say the cutscenes, from the cutscenes, it looks decent on Switch 2. That's really all I can say about it. I know nothing. I know Fatal Frame, it's a Koei Tecmo thing? I don't even know that for sure. I should probably look it up to not be stupid. But I'm not gonna. So there you go. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I believe Fatal Frame's a Koei Tecmo thing. That's pretty much all I know about Fatal Frame. It's like a horror thing. I know basically nothing else about Fatal Frame. So, okay, next thing. Another Warriors game. We got a... Oh god, what's it called? It's like a... something Warriors. Nepeg, Ultimate Warrior, Pirate Warrior, I don't know. Warriors, it's some anime, I don't know. It's a Warriors game. It isn't a Warriors game. Overcooked 2 is getting a Switch 2 edition, which is actually kind of neat because Overcooked 2 obviously is a very cooperative game, and it's kind of neat because the Switch 2 edition adds camera support, so when you're playing online, you can, like, see each other's faces over the characters. That's kind of a neat thing. I don't know if it warrants, like, a whole Switch 2 edition. It probably could have been a free update, but whatevs. It's not the end of the world. Stardew Valley getting a Switch 2 edition. That actually makes a lot of sense. I'm not, like, a Stardew Valley guy. I did play a couple hours of it a long time ago, and honestly, part of me does want to, try to play it again at some point. But I like to play a lot of stuff that has objectives. And I know there is an objective, sort of, in Stardew Valley, but it's a very long game, too. I don't know. It's very long, I think, is the main thing. I might play it at some point, but it's not anytime too soon. But the Switch 2 edition has added mouse controls now, which is pretty cool. If I was ever going to play Stardew Valley, I would probably still play the PC version, unless I happen to find a really good deal on the Switch 2 version, then maybe, but... Yeah, it looks pretty cool, and definitely is something that should happen. Whether I'm excited about it or not, the mouse controls on Stardew Valley will be big, because Stardew Valley is still one of the best-selling indie games year after year. I think it might have even been the best-selling indie game last year. I know it outsold Balatro, which is crazy, considering Balatro was a huge, big indie game. Everybody was talking about it, and it was brand new. And Stardew Valley is like 9 years old at this point, and it still outsells some of these games. So... the Stardew Valley is not to be understated. It's a huge thing, and it's probably a good idea that it's getting a Switch 2 edition, even if I'm probably never going to play it. The same goes for Human Fall Flat. I'm absolutely never going to play Human Fall Flat in my entire life. I hope, unless if I do, then I don't know, I'm lost. But yeah, but there's a Switch 2 edition, and I can't deny that game sold like 50-some million copies. I was blown away last time I went to look at that, and so it's probably good that it's getting a Switch 2 edition. Same thing kind of goes for Power Wash Simulator 2. It's a huge thing. I don't really understand the hype behind Power Wash Simulator, but hey, you know what? If that's people's things, if that's their thing, right? So I can't judge too much. I used to be really into Animal Crossing, and some people would say that's on the same tier. So I argue it's not on the same tier, but it is what it is. Power Wash 2, cool. And then the other thing here is Suika game, Suikoden, not Suikoden. Suikoden's an RPG. Suika game, that's like it's like the fruit puzzle game. I know a lot of people talked about Suika game, but a lot of people also played the knockoff that came out on mobile. I know at school people were playing that like last year, like it was a huge thing, or maybe 2 years ago. I don't know. It's been a little while now. And so there's a new one of those coming out. It's neat. It seems like an interesting idea for a puzzle game. People that are really into like Tetris or Puyo. I can never say that right. I imagine some of them might be kind of into this kind of thing too, and it seems cool. This one's got a bit of a different take, where instead of it falling down in a rectangle, it's now falls towards the middle of the circle, which is actually really cool. It's almost intriguing, but it's just not really my kind of thing. There's not objective. You know what I mean? Like it's not my kind of thing, but it's neat. Suika Game Planet, it's called. The next thing, as soon as it came up, it was like some big dark thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's this? And then immediately I was like, oh shoot, wait, no, this is totally Metroid Prime 4. And it was, in fact, Metroid Prime 4. And this trailer, um, I thought it was kind of neat when I saw it as a not Metroid Prime guy. But a lot of people didn't like it. So we saw Samus on a bike. Samus was on a bike in a large, open, vast area. And I know this surprised a lot of people because it almost seems like the game is supposed to be open world. I think that's kind of the idea here. I think is kind of what they're trying to convey is that, hey, this is an open world game. If it's not open world, then it's got huge areas, that's for sure. Which was cool. But I can't deny that an open world Metroid Prime game doesn't really seem like the right move. I know back before Metroid Prime 3 came out, there was talks about that maybe being an open world game, but then they couldn't do it because it was the Wii, and the Wii, had like, you know, a, I don't know, like a nano flop. No, but you get what I'm saying. Like there was like no power in that thing, and so they just could not do it. And I don't think Metroid Prime thing's really the thing to have open world. I don't know. I'm mixed. I'm not much of a Metroid Prime guy myself, but from what I see of it, I think the idea here is to have pretty tight corridors and things, and you're traversing through pretty small areas. And I think opening it up like that would probably make it less puzzling, but it would also just like be more tedious moving around those larger areas. So I don't know. I feel like it's maybe not the best idea. Now I don't know. We don't know for sure that it is open world, but that's certainly the implication. And it also looked like from the bit of trailer we got, there wasn't really much to do in the open world. So it seems like it's kind of just an obstacle for exploration, which is probably not what you want in this game. So that is a little concerning. I'm sure Metroid Prime 4 will still be a good game. I know I've talked about for months here how I'm not going to play Metroid Prime 4 when it comes out because Nintendo doesn't give us Metroid Prime 2 and 3. To be honest, I'm starting to lean towards maybe I will actually play Metroid Prime 4 when it comes out. And because I hear more and more that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are not going to be necessary for the story. So if I just finish Prime 1, like maybe I can just hop into Prime 4. Like I'm so unsure. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I might wait a few weeks. Maybe I'll make it a Christmas thing. Might wait a few weeks and see what people are saying. I don't know. I'm really mixed. But I know a lot of people like it. A lot of people are so excited about it. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's that. There's also some amiibo coming out for Metroid Prime, which is neat. There's Samus coming out. Although we already have a Samus amiibo that looks an awful lot like this one. It's just that the costume's obviously a little bit different, or the armor. There's one of her on the bike, which is kind of neat. And then there's a Sylux amiibo, which I don't believe there's a Sylux amiibo previously. I know he was in, what was he in? Metroid Prime Hunters or Federation Force, one of the two, maybe both, I don't know. So that's kind of cool. Alright, the next game here, when it was first zooming in on an island, I was like, shoot, are they doing freaking Animal Crossing already? That seems like a bad move with Tomodachi Life, but then turns out it was not actually Animal Crossing or Tomodachi Life. It was a Donkey Kong Bonanza DLC, and it's DK Island from Donkey Kong 64. Now, again, I know with a lot of this new stuff, I'm pretty late to the party here. A lot of people already talked about this stuff, and a lot of people are complaining that, oh, this is clearly cut content. How terrible is it that they put out DLC this soon after the game came out? And I agree to a point. I do think that this is a little early for DLC. I don't think they should have rushed this out this early. I think like a next year DLC would have been better. They could have talked about it in the February Direct, possibly as part of a Donkey Kong anniversary celebration, and then they could have put it out sometime next year. Now, who knows? Maybe they have another Donkey Kong Bonanza DLC lined up. Maybe that's why. But I don't know. It seemed a little early, to be honest. But I was pretty excited because I was like, oh, cool, a new layer. I'll go and get some bananas and some fossils and stuff. Nope. Turns out the DK Island layer does not, in fact, have new bananas or fossils to collect. Instead, you're collecting emeralds. So there's this new Emerald Rush mode. So basically, what Emerald Rush is, from what I can see as a guy who hasn't played it, they replace all the gold in the land with emeralds, and you just have to mine emeralds. And like, okay, like, okay, like, I don't understand. Like, the whole idea here was that in Bonanza we had all these collectibles, and like, so now you're just like shoehorning in another, and obviously for DK Island, right? We haven't collected this gold before or anything, but in all the other islands, it's like I've this isn't like new content. They were just replacing gold with emeralds, and then telling you to get a certain amount of it. Like it doesn't. It's not really a new mode, is it? Like I don't know. Anyways, this frustrates me. It's so bare bones. And I think part of that's because they had no time to make it, because the game just came out. Um, yeah, I don't know. I there's just not much new to do, and I didn't buy it, and I'm not gonna buy it. I'm just not interested. It's just like, they should have just added a whole, like, another layer with, like, proper content from the main game. Like, that could have been a cool thing, and yeah, but most people's main problem was that it was DLC and the game was already $70. How could they charge us another 20? All that stuff. I don't know. It is what it is. That's not my complaint. My main complaint is seriously just the whole, like, there's nothing there, nothing to do. It's so bare bones. It's so dry. I mean, it's like, what's even the point? So that kind of sucks, to be honest. And also, good news, if anybody was wondering. The Donkey Kong Bonanza demo is now available on the eShop. I know. I know. It's great. This is incredible news. I'm like, what's wrong with you, Nintendo? Why didn't you put the demo for the game out before the darn game came out? Or on the day it came out? And maybe, people who did wanted to play it. I'm like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I don't know, man. They're putting out the demo now, months after the game came out. Whatever, fine. Do what you want. I don't know. It is what it is. I personally got to play the demo at a Walmart, not my home Walmart, but another Walmart, before the game came out back in like June. But I assume it's the same demo. But yeah, that is kind of stupid. All right, next game. It is a farming Pokemon game. You're farming in Pokemon, and you're playing as Ditto, as a human. And you're farming, and you get some Pokemon, you do some farming, and there's some farming. Alright, so next up, we got Pokemon Legends ZA. So, of course, that is, the sequel to Pokemon Legends Arceus. I was looking for Arceus, not a new copy. I was looking for a pre-owned copy at GameStop. I don't have a GameStop near me anymore, so we had to travel for a GameStop, and they didn't have it. Like, I couldn't find Arceus anywhere. So I guess I'm not going to play ZA when it comes out. It comes out only in a couple weeks now. Next podcast episode. No, not next podcast episode. Never mind. It won't be out next podcast episode. But it'll be out 2 podcast episodes from now. But I won't be playing that when it comes out. I'll probably check it out sometime next year or something. Unless I hear terrible things about it, then maybe I just won't buy it at all. But yeah, I am going to get around to playing ZA at some point, but I got to play Arceus first anyway, so I don't know. We'll see. It looks cool. It's exciting. It's cool. I'm glad that Pokemon does something besides just regular Pokemon games. Here's the problem with the Pokemon Legends Arceus stuff, is that guess what's coming out for Pokemon Legends Arceus? DLC! Oh my gosh, DLC for the game that's not even out yet! It's not out! The game's not out! And even better, you can pre-order the freaking DLC! You can pre-order the DLC before the game comes out. Goodness gracious. So this, unlike the whole Donkey Kong Bonanza thing, clearly is actually cut content. And it does frustrate me that they're doing this. I think that's pretty stupid. But, you know what? I just won't buy it. Problem solved. It's that, funnily enough, that's the solution to most of these problems. It's like, oh, this is too expensive. How could they do this? Yeah, but I just won't buy it. There you go. I'm not gonna buy it. So yeah, I mean DLC before the game comes out. That's something you expect from non-Nintendo companies. And of course, it isn't Nintendo making the decision; it's the Pokemon company. But of course, that reflects bad on Nintendo because everybody has this idea that Nintendo makes the Pokemon games. They don't. They don't make them. It's not them. It's not their fault. But I understand that that's a lot. That's the association most people have. So it does definitely. It means bad things for Nintendo when the Pokemon company does stupid stuff like that. All right. Next up, there was a Danganronpa 2. It's like a DLC or it's like a. I don't think it's DLC because I think it's standalone technically, but it's like more content related to Danganronpa 2. So it's kind of like a new Danganronpa game, like a shorter one, which is pretty cool. I actually plan to play Danganronpa at some point. Not anytime too soon, but at some point. And so I think that's pretty cool that they're doing that. But of course, I know basically nothing about Danganronpa, so. All right, so if we didn't have enough Warriors games, enough Musha games, we have another one. We have Dynasty Warriors Origins. I don't actually know if this is a new game. I'm not familiar with the um, Warriors games. I don't actually know if this is a new game or if this is a like a remaster. I think it's a new game or it's paid DLC. Okay, that's what it is. DLC. I guess it really is the DLC Direct, as many people were saying. We got Monster Hunter Stories 3. So we saw this at Summer Games Fest. I actually do kind of want to play the Monster Hunter games at some point. A funny thing that I heard about this footage from Monster Hunter 3, this was beat 'em ups. I was talking about this, and he was like, it's kind of weird that the footage that they put for Monster Hunter. If you look at some of the footage that they show of Monster Hunter, it's like not perfect footage. Like there's moments where like things collide or you can see some pop in and like they're not like major performance issues or bugs or anything, but it's like the kind of stuff that you wouldn't expect them to put in the in the like the trailer for the game. It's the kind of stuff you think that you would find out after you bought the game. So in a weird way it's almost kind of they're being like super transparent, but it's also like I think they just literally just put the trailer together poorly, which is kind of funny. But yeah, whatever. And then they did a little scissor reel. We saw some things. We saw Persona. We saw Two Point Museum. We saw Dysagia or Disgaea. I don't even know how to say that. EA Sports, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 coming out on October 30th. That's pretty cool. I don't know if I'll get around to playing Dragon Quest 3 before that comes out or not, so I might not get around to this game before next year, which would kind of suck, but Walmart doesn't freaking carry anything even slightly niche. So, oh well. like, oh well. New Virtua Fighter, that's cool. Lego Voyagers. Again, I'm not into co-op stuff, but Lego Voyagers does actually look pretty neat. There was a lot of co-op stuff announced at Summer Games Fest, and Lego Voyagers was one of them. We had Little Nightmares 3. I will probably play the Little Nightmares games at some point. They're on my Deku deals. At some point, I'll buy them. They showed us more Persona 3 Reload. That's coming to Switch 2. I could see myself buying the Switch 2 version years and years down the road just to have it in my collection. But I've already played the game on the PS5, so I don't necessarily need it. And then we got, like, it was the one last thing, right? They always have their one last thing. And I thought the one last thing was going to be something big. I was like, shoot, this is going to be like a big Nintendo IP. Honestly, I was kind of thinking the one last thing might be Splatoon Raiders, because we haven't heard about that game in like 100 years. But nope, it was freaking Resident Evil. Like, oh, okay. Like, if this was a partner direct, then yeah, sure, Resident Evil would have been a great one last thing. But like, for an actual, like a proper Nintendo direct, like, I don't know. But it is still cool that Resident Evil is coming to Switch 2. And what we did learn from this trailer is that the new Resident Evil game, Resident Evil Requiem, is coming out day and date between the Switch 2 and other consoles, which is great, because that means we are going to get third-party support on launch day for these things. And I think that'll mean great things for the Switch 2 and great things for the Switch 2 audience just in general, for years to come. So that's pretty cool. And that is all from the Direct. It was a very long Direct, the longest one ever, I believe. Longest, like, actual Direct. There's been presentations and stuff, a couple that have been a little longer, but as far as actual Direct, I think that's been the longest one, I believe. I could be mistaken. At the very least, it's been the longest one in a long time. And I think most of it was because they had the Mario Anniversary Direct and stuff. And overall, I think the Mario Anniversary Direct was honestly a little weak. Wasn't great. But the overall, the direct was fine. It could have been better. It could have been better. My highlight, my personal highlight, is definitely Virtual Boy games. I know that's not most people's highlight, but that's definitely my big thing. I really still feel that we're kind of lacking on games and big IPs and stuff. First party IPs, I mean, for Switch 2. I mean, we got a Donkey Kong game that was huge, right? We got Mario Kart. Okay. But like, there hasn't been a whole lot else big. We got Metroid coming out. If you count Pokemon, we got a Pokemon game coming out, but there's still a lot missing. Like Splatoon Raiders, I'm gonna assume is gonna be towards the end of next year. But like, I really want something Mario, and I know that 3D Mario is not viable because Bonanza just came out, and I know that 2D Mario is not viable because Wonder came out 2 years ago. But like, I don't know. I just feel like surely they could do something. Maybe they could do a Mario Maker. And this, I expected to see something surprising in the Mario Anniversary Direct, but really the only thing that was like we hadn't heard about or anything was the Yoshi game. And I'm not really too interested in the Yoshi game. And so I'm like, okay. Um, I kind of wish there was something else going on here. I don't even know exactly what I want. Maybe I want a Zelda remake. I don't know. Nintendo's in a really weird spot right now because, unlike with most consoles, they didn't give up on the Switch One. Obviously, because it kept selling, right? But like the launch year of the Switch One was huge, right? We got some big games. But the last couple of years of Switch One, contrary to popular belief, were also pretty huge. Like the Switch One was a huge thing. Um, so yeah, I don't know. You know what I just realized? I'm an idiot. So some of you guys are probably like telling me how stupid I am. Resident Evil Requiem was not the one last thing. Although they did kind of frame it separately from everything else. The direct had like ended, and then they're like, okay, here's another thing. They did Resident Evil Requiem, but then the actual one last thing was Fire Emblem. Sorry, I haven't watched this direct in quite a few days now. I've watched it 3 times now, but over many different days. So Fire Emblem game, I have not played a Fire Emblem game. I'd like to get into Fire Emblem at some point. The issue with Fire Emblem for me is that most of the games are Japan only, or most of the early games anyways. So I can't play them in order, which isn't really a big deal. I'm probably going to play one of the Switch 1 ones at some point, but I don't know. Anyways, Fire Emblem, a lot of people were not happy about Fire Emblem, but hey, it's a thing. But yeah, I was expecting like a Paper Mario game or something, but then I was like, oh, well, we can't do that because we just got Fire Emblem. So just generally, I feel like we kind of are lacking on a lot of the big IPs, but that's because a lot of them have just come out, right? Like we had 3D Zelda 2 years ago, we had 2D Zelda last year, not even a year ago. Um, We've had 2D and 3D Mario both in the last couple of years. We could get a Donkey Kong Country game, but I assume Retro Studios is still doing that, and they're a little busy with Metroid. We could maybe get a 2D Metroid game in the next couple of years from Mercury Steam, but who knows? Maybe they helped out with some of the other Metroid games. I don't know. I don't know what they've done. So there's just a lot of things. Then I figured maybe Goodfeel was making a 3D Yoshi game, but no, they're making a 2D Yoshi game. Just a lot of like really small things coming out, or a lot of just nothing coming out. Really, just a lot of nothing. I thought maybe we'd hear about a Luigi's Mansion game, but it seems like Next Level might be the ones behind this Mario Tennis. I don't know. Maybe it's Camelot. I don't know. But anyway, my point is, there's not a whole lot going on. And I think the big problem here is that the summer thing, the big like June Direct, wasn't really as big as I expected it to be. That didn't end up really being a thing. There was like the July Partners thing, but it wasn't really all that big. And then also the April Direct was replaced with the Switch 2 presentation. So obviously the April presentation was great, but then we were kind of missing the June Direct, which makes sense because the Switch 2 is coming out. And now we were also kind of like the September Direct wasn't quite as big as I was expecting it to be. And the Mario Direct wasn't as big as I was expecting it to be. And so I'm kind of just left feeling like, man, this is not really a great year for announcements. I would say like 2 big announcements of the year. There was the presentation for Switch 2, and then just the Switch 2 trailer back in January. Those are the only 2 big announcements from Nintendo we've gotten this year. And so it's like, well, I guess I'm not really going to hear about new news until like the Game Awards, and that's not going to be anything Nintendo related. And so then I have to wait till February for the Direct. But if we're being honest, the February Direct's probably going to be pretty small. Um, And so I don't know. We might be waiting around till like April again until anything remotely big. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned. And to be honest, there are a couple of things coming out next year up until April. So yeah, maybe they're just gonna like let the February Direct just be detailing a few things coming out before April, and then the April Direct will be the next big thing. But that feels like too long away for me because there really just hasn't been a ton of announcements and stuff. And so I don't know. I'm definitely a little disheartened about some of that stuff, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, there's still some stuff to play, and if there ever, was a point where things were really, really quiet, which even now I don't think they're really quiet. They're a little quiet, but they're not really quiet. I always have old stuff to play. I have so much old stuff to play. I have stacks and stacks of things I need to get around to playing. And if I really wanted, if I really like totally ran out of stuff, I could always just like buy a bunch of indie games, or I could even turn to the dark side and buy like a subscription service like Game Pass or something. I don't know, but there's a lot of stuff I would do before I bought that again. My point is, I'm not actually going to run out of games to play, regardless of how slow the output is. So it is what it is. Speaking of new games on subscription services, I did touch on this earlier. I talked about Klonoa, and the other one I forgot, Mr. Driller 2. That's the one I was like, oh, it's some puzzle thing. Couldn't remember the name. Those two games are out on Switch Online. I believe they're out now, right? I think they're out. Or maybe they're coming. I'm not really sure. So, yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know when these are coming out. Maybe they're out already. I did check the day they announced them, and they weren't out at that point, but they might have come out since. So I don't know. Trails in the Sky, first chapter. That game came out. Oh boy, I really need to know my stuff a little better. It came out last week, I think. So if it was Thursday, it must have been the 18th. Oh no, it was the 19th. I just looked it up. So it came out on a Friday then. So the 19th that came out, so that's pretty recent. Trails in the Sky, that was announced quite a while ago. I actually don't remember when that was announced. It might have been Summer Games Fest, but I almost thought it might have been earlier than that. Trails in the Sky, Trails is one of the series that I obviously want to play with RPGs and stuff. And Trails in the Sky looks great. Right? Like, this remake looks stunning. It looks great. It seems to run great. The story seems kind of appealing. I'm actually really interested in this Trails of the Sky first chapter remake, and I do believe there's a physical for it, but I don't know where I would find that, so might have to buy it online or something, but I'm actually kind of considering this Trails in the Sky remake, but I probably want to hear a little bit more about it first. But yeah, it's a pretty new thing. I just wanted to say that was a cool thing that I'd heard about, and I was thinking about playing it. All right, there's a Resident Evil game coming at some point. That's cool. I don't even know why I brought this up. I've had some of these articles pulled up for a couple days. There's a Resident Evil movie. I actually hadn't heard about that. Maybe you guys had. All right, Final Fantasy VII is getting a new mode. There is a new like a new difficulty slider. It's a faster weapon ability charge. And so basically you can always possess the maximum number of items at all times. And you can toggle it on and off from the menu. So basically, some people are kind of mad because this is going to make the game too easy. I don't know. I know a lot of people are mad about that. Good news is you can turn it off, so, let's see, Mina the Hollower, that game is coming up. Mina the Hollower is in October. I want to say it comes out on Halloween, right? On the 31st? Yes, and it does indeed come out on Halloween, on the 31st. That's pretty cool. So Mina the Hollower, I would say it's probably the second biggest indie game of the year. Obviously, Silk Song's probably gonna end up being a little bit bigger, but Mina the Hollower is definitely still a big release. I would say in any other year, it would by far be the biggest indie release of the year. But Silk Song, I think, probably a little bigger. But we'll see. I don't know. Maybe Mina the Hollower will get a little bit more buzz than I'm expecting it to. I know a lot of people have been talking about that. I know a lot of people are finishing up Silk Song and stuff, and so that's kind of the new thing to talk about. That's coming out, so that's pretty cool. I know a lot of people were excited about that. Ninja Gaiden 4, I know that. Well, that actually came out. When did that come out? Did that come out in August, maybe? It occurred to me, I found an article about it, and it occurred to me that I hadn't talked about Ninja Gaiden 4 at all. And I haven't played it, But I think it's kind of cool to mention that hey, we got two Ninja Gaiden games this year. Oh no, actually, it comes out in October. Okay, that's why I must have heard about it then. So I guess I don't know my stuff. But Ninja Gaiden 4, for those who don't know, they were the old school Ninja Gaiden games. They were 2D brawlers, action adventure platformers, I guess. On the NES, there were a few of them. Um, and the series kind of morphed into 3D games and the like PlayStation, PS2, Xbox, original Xbox. It kind of got a reboot on the original Xbox, and then that series has kind of gone on, and that's a 3D hack and slash thing. Um, and that series is now what this Ninja Gaiden 4 is part of, is that like hack and slash series. But there was also Ninja Gaiden Ragebound earlier this year, back in July, I believe. And that game was like Shinobi like. It was like the originals actually. I guess Shinobi is actually Ninja Gaiden like. But anyways, the point is, um, I find it funny that there were now two Ninja Gaiden games this year, and also a Shinobi game, and all three of those are fairly similar. So I just think that's kind of interesting. All right, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. This was big news a few days ago. There are a few things happened with Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. First of all, there was a big leak, or not a leak actually. Well, it leaked, but then it got actually confirmed. Um, the final DLC racer for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. So I don't actually know when these are coming out, but there might be more. But the final DLC racer, at least for this wave, is going to be Mega Man, which is pretty cool. I think that's definitely going to be a big pickup for them as far as their whole, uh, crossover stuff. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, so Sonic Racing Cross Worlds that got reviews. I know it was big news that it reviewed higher than Mario Kart World. A lot of people were more happy with it, critics at least. I don't know about the fans. The game just came out like yesterday, as of recording this, I believe. Yesterday? I think it came out yesterday. Um, I know it came out now finally. I got a notification on Deku Deals that the game had come out, which is cool. I originally was thinking about playing the game, and then I opted not to. I might at some point still play it, but if I do, it'll probably be, oh, it came out today actually. Oh wow, okay. So for you guys, it'll probably have been yesterday. This probably isn't gonna come out till Friday, but anyways, so yeah, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, that game came out today. I actually haven't heard a whole lot of talk about it, but I also haven't been too online today, so I'm sure if I went on a little bit, I'm actually gonna check right now. I'm gonna go on my articles, my recommended articles. I'm gonna see if I see anything about Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. Scrolling down, scrolling down. Actually, nothing. I'm saying. Let me go on YouTube and see if anybody's talking about Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, because I feel like usually when a big game comes out, I'm hearing all sorts of stuff about it. I actually really don't see anything. Weird. I'll look into that. Maybe not a lot of people are talking about it. But anyways, Sonic Racing Cross Worlds did come out though, I believe, unless this is some sort of like I'm going crazy and Google's lying to me. But I do believe it came out today. So I don't know. How strange. Uh, I loved this article. I'm not gonna like read anything off it, but I do love this article from the Gamer. The title: "The PS6 is getting closer, but the question remains: will it have games?" um, and that is a real question with the new console, the new consoles that are probably gonna be coming out in the next couple of years here. Um, are they actually gonna have games? Because the PS5 has not been the best with its output. I know this isn't like any sort of shock to a lot of people. So, they could have done better for sure, for sure. But it's just how things go, I guess. And so we'll see if things continue that way. If you could tell here, I'm kind of rushing through the rest of this, rest of these articles and stuff, and the rest of the news things. Um, all right, so there was a Tokyo Summer Games Show or Summer Games Fest or something. It's been like a bigger week than it should have been. Like things just were crazy. And honestly, the Tokyo Summer Games Show should not have been a thing until next episode. But because I messed up and got it out late, it actually did end up being um this week. But anyways, um, Tokyo Game Show 2025. I'm gonna pull up the IGN thing so I can kind of have a list here of everything announced. All right, Forza Horizon 6. We talked about this last episode. There was a big leak, rumors about Forza Horizon 6 taking place in Japan, and in fact, that is the case. And so we got a new Forza Horizon game that's coming out. I know it's been a little while since the last one, right? I think I want to say it was like 2021, maybe, is when Horizon 5 came out. Let me check on that. 2021. Yes, I was right. So yeah, it's been like 5 years. I guess it's not too bad. But yeah, so I think the last one was in Mexico. They've had a lot of different settings. There's Australia one time. Um, yeah, Forza Horizon 6. We really didn't see much as far as Forza Horizon 6. But they did show like, like you kind of got like a um backdrop of Mount Fuji, and just, basic stuff like that. So that's pretty cool, and I'm sure Forza people are happy about. Well, I don't know, maybe they're not. Honestly, I haven't heard much, but I think a lot of them are probably happy about a new Forza game. It's been a little while. I know it was big news earlier this year that Playground Games got shut down. They were the people that made Forza Motorsport. So that series is probably dead, even though it was a big thing 2 years ago. A lot of people liked the last one. Oh well, it's gone now. That's what happens with the Xbox layoffs. But oh well, it is what it is. And so now it is just Forza Horizon for the Forza series. So it is what it is. But yeah, it is a little unfortunate on some of that stuff. All right, 007 First Light. They announced some of the casting for the game. I don't care about casting, just in general, but especially in video games. But the game looks pretty cool. So I, mean, I don't know, not much to say about it. I never played GoldenEye. I've never been into that stuff, but the game looks alright, like visually and stuff. So I'm sure it'll probably be a big thing. I don't know if it's gonna come to Switch 2. It might actually. Let's see here. Did they say whether it would? Let me click on the trailer again, see at the end here. Yeah, it's not listed for Switch 2. But I imagine it might come, but not until later. I actually forgot to mention, too, for Forza Horizon 6, they obviously talked about it for Xbox and for PC. But they also did mention that it will get a PS5 version later. So it's not gonna come out day and date, but it'll come out later, probably less than 6 months, I would guess, later. But we'll see. Call of Duty Black Ops 7, they have some maps in Japan. I guess everybody had to have something going on in Japan for the Tokyo Game Show. That makes sense. Obviously, we did see the Ninja Gaiden trailer. I think that was why I saw that article the other day about it. Ninja Gaiden does look pretty cool. I'm interested in playing the 2D Ninja Gaidens, not so much the 3D Ninja Gaidens, so I'm not sure I would ever really get into the 3D Ninja Gaidens, but the 2D ones I definitely want to play through, for sure. I definitely want to play Ragebound. All right, Monster Hunter Stories 2, and 1 and 2, I should say, in preparation, for Monster Hunter, yeah, for Metroid, for Monster Hunter Stories 3, both games are coming to the Xbox. I know if you guys haven't noticed this, I don't know if I mentioned this, this is the Xbox showcase at Summer Tokyo Game Show. That's what we're talking about here. Let's see. They had Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. Adding some Japan locations. Everybody's adding Japan locations here. Gungrave Gore Blood Heat, which has got to be the most random like combinations of words I've ever heard. But this is it's a shooter. I mean, wow, how crazy. I don't know. It's a new game. A lot of these things we're not really told much about. Age of Mythology, that game is sort of similar to Civilization, kind of ish. It was a big release on Game Pass last year, but it's getting a new expansion set in Japan. That's pretty cool, I suppose. Um, but again, we just you don't know a whole lot about a lot of these things. Fatal Frame, we saw it for Switch 2. It's also saw some stuff from Xbox about it, so that's neat. Hotel Barcelona getting some multiplayer modes. I don't know, man. Uh, like if you can't tell, I'm not too positive on this Tokyo Summer Games stuff. There just wasn't much going on. Um, there's also Double Dragon Revive though, so that's pretty cool. Double Dragon Revive is a new Double Dragon game that's supposed to kind of obviously based on the title be similar to the original. That is getting a new challenge beyond the story mode, so that's pretty cool. I don't know. A Nemo. It's basically Pokemon. You know what else to say? Winterboro. It's an indie game. It's living in the winter. Uh, Project Evil Bane. It's yeah, it's a game. It seems a little like it just seems actiony, I suppose. Almost like looks like it might even be like a Souls like, I would say. But it's an action RPG. I don't know if it is gonna be Souls or not, but it might be. I don't really know. I don't really see. I don't tell Souls games when I see them. I'm not going to talk about everything here. Romancing Saga 2, Revenge of the Seven, coming to Xbox. Star Sand Island, another indie game. What else is there anything else really worth talking about? I don't think so. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess there wasn't as much to say as I initially let on. There's not much that happened at not a whole lot that happened, but here's the big thing. This is the big thing for me. This was, I believe, independent of the Tokyo Game Show. I don't believe this is where this was announced. I think they just announced it randomly. Yes, no, 2 days ago. They announced Yakuza Kiwami 3. So, for those who don't know the Yakuza series, basically the first one chronologically is Yakuza 0, which was released in 2015. And right now, the reason why Yakuza is so relevant, at least to me, and I imagine to some other people, is because it's coming out on the Switch 2 in order of when the game you know, it's coming out chronologically. I don't know how to say that. But anyway, so you know, Yakuza 0 came out on launch day of the Switch 2. I'm partway through that. I'm getting towards the end. In October, no, not October, November, Yakuza Kiwami, which is the original game, and Kiwami 2, which is the second game, but they're both remastered. Those two games are supposed to be coming to the Switch 2, and now we've learned that Yakuza 3, although it's also a remade version, is now coming in February of 2026. So they announced that 2 days ago, which obviously excites me. I was a little concerned that they would stop, and it definitely seems like there's definitely a drive here to put all of the Yakuza games, or at least all the ones they can, on the Switch 2. So currently, like, before the Switch 2 came out, the best way to play these games was probably the PS4 version of Yakuza 0, and then Kiwami 1 and 2 pack on PS4, and then the Yakuza Collection, which took 3, 4, 5, 6. But it seems like they're actually finally remastering 3, 4, 5, 6, which is what a lot of people were hoping for a long time. And I'm really glad that these games are coming out first on Switch 2 and then later on other platforms. Definitely brings a lot of people to the Switch 2. So I'm gonna get to continue playing through the Yakuza series, and it's probably gonna be one of the big things I play through for the next couple of years here, as they come out. So, and I think they're coming out with some good spacing, right? It's not like I'm constantly playing Yakuza. I have plenty of time to beat the games, but I'm also not waiting around too long, right? We had in June, and then now in November, and the next one's coming out in February. You know, so I imagine Yakuza 4 will probably come out sometime next, like, summer, and then maybe we'll get like Yakuza 5 before the end of the year. That's my guess, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get 5 and 6. Maybe we'll get all of the first 6. But either way, it seems like I'm definitely gonna be able to play a lot of these games, which is great news because I definitely, from what I've played of Yakuza 0, I definitely am quite a fan. So that's gonna do it for all of the news for today. This is obviously a very long show. You know what? I think maybe it would be better if I saved all the stuff I've been playing for another episode. Maybe I just saved it for next week. This is obviously a pretty packed episode with the Direct, and with Tokyo Game Show, and then all this other news stuff. I know I promised I was going to talk about games I played. I think it would actually make more sense if I saved it for next week. I know I should probably have all this stuff planned out properly, but I did not expect this to take over 2 hours to talk about the news stuff. But I think I had some good points and stuff, and I hope it was entertaining. I think I might also just call this for this show. So just a single segment show. Sorry, I can't talk. And next episode in 2 weeks, it will be back on Tuesday, I believe, if all goes well. So it'll only be like 11 days. I will then talk about games I've been playing at that point. And that might honestly be the whole show, but I might talk about some news and stuff if there is any to talk about. But I imagine most of next show we'll be talking about Bonanza, about Kirby, about another game, and then maybe I'll get back to Yakuza or something by then. We'll see. So I think that's what we're gonna do. I think we're gonna call it good for this show. So I still have stuff to talk about next show, and so this show doesn't get ridiculously long. And I think that's gonna do it. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I was gonna say coming out, but you didn't really come anywhere. I was just kind of here. So thanks everybody for tuning in. And I'm not going to really delay it any further. I will just say, though, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure to do that. And there's all the other links to the other YouTube channels in the description. And then the big thing, join the Discord. There's a lot of cool conversation that goes on in the Discord. We have a community Minecraft server for anybody who plays Minecraft, and that is through the Discord as well. So you can join the Discord down below. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens over there. We have game-specific chats. You can ask me questions to answer on the podcast. You can also, of course, do that by emailing the show at notjustnintendo@gmail.com. That is NOTJUSTNINTENDO@gmail.com. I was on Blue Sky, but I'm pretty much off Blue Sky. I think I'm done with Blue Sky. I don't know. It's just like I just don't like it that much anymore. The more I use it, I'm like, I wish we had another Twitter that wasn't broken. And so I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Blue Sky. I'm really not in any of these places. I'm still trying to figure out if there's a better place for me to go. Maybe I'll head over to Threads, try that out for a while. We'll see what happens. Or maybe I'll go back to X. But anyways, again, that's going to do it for today. I'm not going to delay any further. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you, or listening, I guess. See you in 2 weeks. Actually, 11 days. Because hopefully the next one will actually come out at the right time. And goodbye.